Gotta go. Dianne Bellamy Small, welcome to Not Just Headlines.
Thank you.
So can you give us a look and a picture into the Greensboro that you envision in the future?
The Greensboro that I envision in the future is one that is able to make sure that all of its residents have opportunities, have housing, have decent jobs, that their children are able to go to school and also experience, whether it's playgrounds or sports complexes, the kinds of things that make for a well-rounded community.
Mm-hmm. And you've served the city for decades, so like on the school board, city council, etc. So what would you say drives your work?
I consider myself a servant leader, which is different from being a politician, in my opinion, because I truly believe that I'm there to serve the people, to see what they want and advocate for those kinds of things. I spend, like yesterday, I was at a backpack giveaway for several hours, and I just watch and speak to people about, okay, what are your needs? So making yourself accessible to be able to hear what the everyday people say. Then I take those things and go back and try to get the administrators, or when I was on city council, I used to have the staff, the administrative staff, the leadership staff, go out into the community with me so that the people in the community will see this is who makes the decisions about, how tall your bushes can be, or when your trash gets picked up, so because I felt it was important for the staff to understand that they actually work for the people. And for some reason or other, we've kind of gotten that twisted around in government and making it assume that we have to do the bidding of government. We pay the taxes. We pay their salaries. It should be our voices that are heard whenever we want to see certain things in our community.
And you say you're out in the community speaking to people. So how have those conversations shifted from when you first started to do public service to now?
Surprisingly, I don't think it's shifted much. I think people still feel that they are not heard, that a lot of times I feel I have to encourage people to really believe that their vote does count, and that what you need to do is to hold the elected officials that you put in office accountable, meaning that you call them, you talk to them, you ask them to come to meet with you or your group. Those things are important. If we ever understood that how important it is to vote, particularly in local elections, it's now, because the things that we see happening at the state and at the national level, regardless of what it is, whatever cuts, whatever policies, they have to be implemented by your local government. I can give you an example. The $6.3 million that they were not going to release for schools. It was your local school board and local school administrators that had to figure out, what do we do if we're minus $6.4 million that we had already included in our budget. The national and state didn't call and say, hey, let's help you figure out how to manage your shortfall. So all politics is local. And so the people who are going to impact you first and fastest is going to be your city government, your county government, your local officials. Because, think about during the pandemic. Washington didn't come down here and tell us how to, provide bus service free for citizens, or how to give our first responders child care so that they could go to work. It was your local government officials that figured that out to try to make life livable during that time.
And so, speaking of local politics, you also serve on the Guilford County school board, yes, and you also are a part of many other committees. So how do you balance that and running at the same time while also being on the school board?
Well, as I have shared many times, I've been in this arena for a very, very long time. I was a election official for 26 years before I switched to what I call the dark side that I bring a light to. Okay, so you're talking about close to 50 years of experience. Plus, before I became an election official, I was very actively involved with NAACP, and I was a state youth advisor for the youth council for the NAACP. So this has been almost all of my life being involved in leadership in some way. It's sort of like when you're doing something that you feel you're called to do, it's not work like if I had to go to a 9 to 5. I mean, I'm 73 years old, so as I tell people when they say, "Oh, you're so busy," I smile and say, "I'm only busy doing what I choose to do." So for me, I think the advantage of voting for me is that you've got this wealth of experience. If I haven't done it, I've seen it. And I've advocated for the unpopular things in the community. When I say unpopular, the reason that there is a day center for homeless is because I went and stood on the block with homeless folk and said, "What do you need?" And then I went before the city council and I brought that up. I've advocated for ex-offenders because my feeling is that once you have satisfied all of the conditions of your incarceration, you should be given a chance to make your life whole again. Well, part of that is you got to attack these policies for businesses that say, "Oh, we don't hire ex-offenders." And I challenged that and said, "Okay, well, why don't you hire an ex-offender?" "Well, because it's policy." "But why?" And so the city of Greensboro and the county banned the box. That was done under my leadership before, which meant that instead of having on the front of your application, "Have you been convicted of a crime?" it's not there, so that you have a chance for somebody to look at what you can do. And then, that can come up as, okay, well, when you did something ridiculous when you were 16, but you're now a family person and you're trying to move on with your life, you should be given another chance.
So those are stories that maybe the younger generation doesn't know because we were children, stuff like that. So what are some other things that you've done in the community that the younger people might not know, but you're able to point to and be like, "I've done this"?
Well, one thing is when I was on council before, they were going to put a curfew on teenagers because there had been a fight downtown. And I fought vigorously against that because I felt like, okay, whenever there's a fight between older people downtown, you don't put a curfew on them. Why are we going to do it to our kids? Find out what the young people want. They say, "Well, too many of them are coming downtown." Well, they're citizens in this city too. And if they want to be, access the parks and, those kinds of things. Now, we do need to get a handle on the violence. We do need to get a handle on the guns. But again, I'm gonna, that means that when I was advocating for that, that was 12 years ago. So now those young people, and I even fought to make sure that, I think we arrested like 7 or 8 people. And I pushed hard that they didn't get a criminal record. Because how are you gonna give a child a criminal record for, staying out past a curfew? I mean, you don't get a criminal record for painting your toenails. So, that if you look at the development in East Greensboro, the parking lot for Hayes Taylor, the library that's the McNair Library, there's so many things. The Justice Center. If you are a person who's been a victim of domestic violence, I was the one that made this city understand that domestic violence wasn't an East Greensboro thing, and that domestic violence was something that impacted all over Greensboro. And in that first year after the Domestic Violence Center, the Justice Center was started, they had no homicides that next year because people had somewhere to go to get comprehensive help. I've been in this community since 1976, so there are a lot of times that people have seen me at stuff like yesterday at the backpack giveaway. The group that does it is the Heads Up for Youth, and 8 years ago, no, 12 years ago, the leader came to me and said, look, we need a bigger venue. Can you help us? And so I advocated for them to be at the Coliseum. And now they started out in the little building, and now they're in the main exhibition building. They had over 3,000 people yesterday. And so the guy who is the executive director, he said, we're here because you believed in me. The Learn to Swim program. If you were a second grader or have been a second grader in Guilford County School in the last 14 years, you went through the Learn to Swim program. And I probably taught some of you to learn to swim. That's one of the most proud accomplishments I feel, because I advocated. I was the deciding vote to bring the aquatic center here, but my vote doesn't come without requests. And so my request is that the aquatic center had to be open to the public, not just exclusively to swim clubs and things like that, because we were spending public dollars. So the Learn to Swim program has probably brought more families through, and one of the beauties of the Learn to Swim program is that we had a lot of families that were non-swimmers, but because their child was in that program, and the program is a part of the Guilford County School curriculum. So if you were in Guilford County Public School and go to the second grade, you have the opportunity to go to the Learn to Swim program. So we've had over 14,000 kids since 2011 who have gone through that, and I just can't even imagine how many lives we've saved.
That's wonderful. So you talked about the accomplishment you're most proud of, but looking back, what is something that you wish you would have done differently?
Well, I know, it's hard to second guess yourself whenever you're having to make decisions based on what you have in front of you right then. But one of the things I wish we had done differently was to go ahead and clean up the unlined dump that's under Bingham Park. When I was on council, we knew then that there was an illegal unlined incinerator dump that was under the baseball field at Bingham Park. And instead of cleaning it out, we covered it. Well, guess what? 15 years later, here it comes again. And I think that sometimes things that are expensive, we shouldn't say, oh, we shouldn't spend that because it's expensive, because whenever downtown needs extra money, we don't mind spending it. And I understand we want to have a viable downtown, but downtown is not all there is to the city of Greensboro. I push very hard for a better mass transit system, because a lot of folk would perhaps use the buses. If if you got to be at work at 8:30, you don't want to have to get up and be at the bus stop at 6:30 to get there. So improving mass transit. I was a part of on the board of PART, which is our regional transit system, so that yes, you can now for $3 go from Greensboro to Winston-Salem. So if you work in Winston, you can use this mass transit system, as opposed to driving a car or having to have the expense for a car. So I think that particular thing has bothered me, because it has come back up, and now the current city council again wants to cover it up. Well, it's an unlined dump, so that means that when it rains, because it sits on a hill, the water from that contamination runs across English Street and down into the creek, where Hampton sit. That's why I pushed against we built a $42 million community building, and the first place that they had planned to build it was at the old Hampton school site. And I said absolutely not, because there is potential contamination there. And so because I raised so much sand, they wound up building it at the Gateway Center, A&T's Gateway Center. That's where the new building is now. But because if they had tried to build it at the Hampton site, I was just gonna tell y'all need to understand that we have a responsibility as the city of Greensboro to clean up these dumps. It's just like I fought to keep the landfill closed, because we know that discrimination when it comes to environmental issues exists in our community. And if you look at the site I've been talking about, Bingham, it has been there for over 70 years, and you've had a public housing community that was there and has now been torn down, and now you've put single family homes there, but we still haven't dealt with cleaning up the site. So at some point the city's going to have to bite the bullet and decide that they're going to clean that site up, because for over 80 years people have been living there, probably even being affected by that contamination.
And what are some other issues that people might not know that Greensboro is currently facing, but you would like to address and shed some light on?
Well, I think what I want to be the representative that really is the voice for the people, not for the business people necessarily. Now, whenever it makes sense to support a business being in our city, fine. But it's just like the city just gave an incentive for this new business to come to the airport. Okay, but you got to ask, okay, how many of those jobs are going to go to local people? Are our workforce, our local workforce, even qualified to get the jobs? Which means that you have to strengthen your schools. Now, we've tried to do a very good job of adding more CTE programs and giving young people an opportunity to come out of high school with better certifications. That's a good thing. But is there more we can do? Yes. Because I want folks who want to live, I understand as a young person, I didn't have that desire, but a lot of young people say, well, I don't want to live where I was born. I want to go somewhere else. Okay, and they do. And what happens though is when they get to be about 40 or 45 years old, guess what? They want to come back home. Okay, so why not see if I want you to go out and see, experience the world, but I want you to also feel that this is a good place to live, work, and play.
Absolutely. And then I want to go back a little bit talking about your experience and your time here. How would you address certain concerns that maybe there should be term limits and age limits on certain candidates, but specifically a lot of young people want to be mentored up and see younger people taking, these positions. So some people have concerns and like, okay, why not just mentor someone younger and help them take over the seat with your experience?
I have mentored folks. I can name particularly for some reason, I don't know if it's because I'm a mother of sons, but I have mentored several young males in particular who have gone on to be elected. But you have to understand that being an elected official is not a cakewalk. And people have asked me, well, are you who are you going to get to replace you? And I said, well, how do you stick 50 plus years of experience into somebody who's 25? You can't. A lot of what I know now, I know because of having been there, done it. Now I'm willing to share what I know with folk, but what I find is, like I said, this is not an easy job. When I was on the city council, I actually saw the gap, because I represented District 1, and I actually pulled together. City of Greensboro has a Citizens Academy. So I pulled together all of the District 1 graduates from Citizens Academy. And so when they came to the first meeting, I had a stack about this high of papers, which were your regulations you had to read or stuff you had to prepare for a city council meeting. I had 21 people who came to the first meeting. Second meeting, I had half that. By the third meeting, I only had 2 people. Because whenever you realize that it's more than just sitting on the dais, looking at the camera, that you've got to do research, homework, go to school. From the time I've been an elected official, and I do tell people, one of the best schools that they can go to is called IOPL. And I went to that. In fact, my sponsor for IOPL just died yesterday, Jim Melvin. But it's a political, it's 6 months, and you get to learn any and everything you want to know about politics, whether it's finance, budgeting, where the money comes from, where the money goes, even how we draw our lines for how you vote. There's a lot, So any opportunity, even now, that I have to go to a training, I'll pick up some nugget that I can bring back and say to my superintendent, "Can we do this? Or is this something that we need to look at?" That's how you become effective. And so I'm willing to, because like I said, I'm 73. And so, and I know what that means, okay? But at the same time, you got to be willing to put in the work to learn how to do this. And just coming up with some snappy phrases or what you think is, what do you call them, sound bites, that's not it, Particularly, you have to realize as an elected official, you hold sometimes the future of people's lives in your hand. And for me, that's very daunting because I don't play with that. So when I sit down I'll talk with staff, and that's one of the things that anybody who wants to go in government or into be an elected official, I would suggest that you go through, whether that's the police academies, the citizens academies, all of our local governments have at least 2 or 3. I know that the city of Greensboro has the Citizens Academy, and then they have the Police Academy, and they have the Fire Academy. Learn what government is, and how do you how you can be effective. I want to encourage young folks to go to Raleigh, because that's again, it's no cakewalk. If you think about you're living here in Greensboro, Guilford County, and you have to drive back and forth 86 miles, sometimes daily, or you have to stay down there because if there's a vote that you can't go and hide. You got to stay down there until 2 o'clock in the morning if necessary. But I'm not trying to discourage folk. I just want you to realize that, it's like when you first wanted to get a car, you just said to your parents, "I want a car," and your parents smiled at you and said, "Mm-hmm." Okay, but then when their parents start saying, "Oh, guess what? Tires, insurance, car payment," then you're like, "Oh, all you thought was there was a car sitting out there." So it's the same thing with being an elected official. But talk to some of the grassroots folks, because see, I'm different than the politician who will just say anything. I don't say anything. I'm going to tell you the truth. And if the truth is something that you're not willing to deal with, then maybe this is not what you need to be in. There are other ways to help. Being volunteers, starting nonprofits, being a part of nonprofits. A lot of the reason why Black nonprofits don't make it is because they don't have strong boards.
And then as an at-large representative, you're representing the entire city. So how do you balance those different needs in the community? Between younger residents and older residents who are maybe requiring different things. How do you balance that whole vision?
Well, I think that people pretty much want the same regardless of what age you are. You want safety. You want the city to respond to whatever the needs are of your community. You want decent roads. You want to see growth and development that makes sense in your area. So whether you're young, old, Now, if there are things that I think that downtown they've tried to create more of a nightlife, and for me, nightlife is more a young thing than necessarily. You may have some 70-year-olds running around down there, not me, but that's more. But we got to keep that safe. We got So if you say that bars have to close at 2 o'clock, then we need to respect that so that everybody gets to enjoy that. So talking, sharing. I think. My website is www.votebellamysmall.com. Reach out, but also be willing to help. I have a very low budget campaign, so to me that makes it available to anybody. When I've been asked, well, how do you do fundraising? Well, my thing is, if you want to contribute to my campaign, you can do so. And I want it to be where one time I had a campaign that was called Pennies from the People. And people looked at me and said, "Pennies?" And I said, "Well, pennies make dollars." And I actually had people who gave me supporters. And I thanked them. And I said, you know what? This will help buy a postcard. Because I want everybody to feel that I am their candidate, that I am approachable, that I'm going to, if you bring me a concern, I'm going to try to make sure that you get an answer, that you get a response. We need to think better in the next few years as to how we're going to help people, because the federal government intends to cut monies that have been here to help, whether it's for feeding people, for our homeless population, for our cultural interests. Those monies are not going to be here. So when we've heard the phrase, it takes a whole village to raise a child, it takes a whole village to keep our community whole.
And then, so with all that being said, everything that you've talked about and addressed today, what are your top priorities? And you're like, okay, I've done this in the past, but right now I'm coming in and I want to do this.
Well, my priority is to give the everyday people a voice, to be assured that there's at least one person on that city council who is asking how are we meeting the needs of our outlying communities, not just downtown. One of the things that people don't know is that downtown has a self tax. So anytime downtown is asking for money from the city, that's in addition to their own self tax. Well, my feeling is our other communities that might need their sidewalks taken care of, or they might need more hours we're just cutting hours for our libraries. Well, that bothers me, because a library is a very free place that a lot of young people can go to, a lot of families can go to. Well, we need to reverse that. So if you don't have a person who says, hold up a minute, if you plan to do this for downtown, then what are we going to do for Southeast, for Northeast, for Southwest, and bring those issues for the whole council to have to respond to. And believe me, people listen to my voice, okay? They know that if you don't play nice in the sandbox with me, I don't get in the sandbox. And I'm going to tell the people, this is what's really going on. So I'm proud of my service, and I believe that you want somebody that has some experience that can hit the ground running and doesn't have to, spend 2 years trying to figure it out.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
No problem.